Welcome to Hong Kong horse racing. Vod and I, absolute pleasure to look around the screen and see Clint Hutchison and also RS Dye. Unfortunately, I'm in COVID lockdown. Hutch Buster, I wish I was next to you, my friend.
Well, I wish you were here too, Richo, but, this is what's eventuated in these times. We can at least still roll on with the show, and I'm glad you're okay there. And, we'll just have to do it remotely. But, look, we've got a fair bit to digest and a fair bit to look forward to.
We've got some stacks to get stuck into. RS Dye, welcome.
Hi, sorry to hear you had COVID. I had it in January, so getting better, but it can take a while. So I hope you're one of the many that recover quickly.
Thank you very much, mate. Hey, talking about star power, we have got star power in spades today. Hugh Bowman's going to join us. Of course, he's ridden a Hong Kong derby, but also with an eye to the championships day two, with the rain tumbling down in Sydney. So whether that race meeting actually goes ahead will be interesting. Of course, we'll find you a stack of winners on Sunday, and Sha Tin will dissect all the action and also learn a bit more when it comes to the Hong Kong school. But first, let's burst out of the gate. And as we burst out of the gates, Hutch, will start with you. How good was it to see Golden 60 and Vincent Ho back? And they offered a pretty good price for him.
Oh, they certainly did. He was backed in late, of course, in Hong Kong to $1.60. But look, it was a great effort, great ride. I'm glad Vincent used that barrier. The pressure was on. And, he just jumped out in a neutral manner and was more than happy to leave him alone in that position. We haven't seen him this close for a long time, but he showed Shane that it can be a case of pace over position. He doesn't need to drag him back. They weren't going all that quick. He drew a gate. He had him a lot closer. And at about the 600-metre mark, if you're on Golden 60, you were feeling pretty good.
Yeah, this is what he can do when he saves his run. Like he did at International Day in the mile. I've seen him do it twice now in 2 years. When he gets back, he doesn't quicken the same way. But if he comes out on him at the 400, he just puts pay to them in 2 strides, and he did it this day. He put 3 links on them in no time, and that's what he can do when he's saved a bit, doesn't make a long run. Vincent gave him a beautiful ride. I was so happy. I actually rang him after the race and congratulated him. I know we all knock him, but it's only fair we did. He rode him bad, simple as that. But this was just a perfect 10 out of 10 ride. Here he is, Clint. He's come off the fence now, and you just know that he's just going to put pay to them in 2 strides, don't you? And here it is.
Absolutely, and he was just jogging at this point. I thought down the back when he just shuffled off the fence as well, that was nearly almost the winning of the race. It gave him the option to sort of push the button when he wanted to, and it was probably quite generous for, I think it was Alexi Bedell on his outside, not to sort of getting a bumping duel with him. He was happy to concede that at that point. But as soon as he had the 1-1 and let him down, it was game over, and it was great to see him back.
A miler or 2,000 metres? I reckon I'd love to just stay at the mile for him.
I'll see what Shane says. I mean, from my point of view, I think he can beat Russian Emperor over 2,000, but he needs to draw barrier and he needs that right run in the race. Whereas over the mile, it's probably doesn't really matter where he draws. He's better than them. So I agree with you. I think he's optimum trips the mile, but I wouldn't put it past him, Shane. I think he could still win a 2,000 with the right run in the race.
Oh, he can definitely win a 2,000. If he draws wide, he goes back and it won't matter. If he saves them and hugs the rail or stays in and follows Russian Empire, he'll run over top of them. And, of course, if he draws in, he can be running 3rd or 4th on the fence, and how they're going to beat him there. I don't think it matters, but definitely the mile is the better journey for him.
Shane, we build up to Champions Day. How do they beat Wellington in the Champions Sprint?
Well, at the weights, those horses who run against him in this race here probably can't. The only one that didn't run more or less was Skyfield, and on his day, he can beat him under the right circumstances. That's Casper's horse. He bypassed this, but, he drops 5 pounds from this run, and he's the real deal, this horse, when he's right. He was impressive. They bet silly odds in because his win the start before was very, very good. I know he had to give them 5 pounds, but a horse like this can do that because they are an even bunch, these horses. But Skyfield's the one you got to look out for.
I thought that, as we've said a few times, it's interesting, isn't it, in terms of their evenness. And I thought in that race, where I got it wrong in terms of the map. I thought that we'd see a couple of runners further forward than they were. Unfortunately, that didn't transpire. Super Wealthy ended up that 2 pairs further back, but Wellington got the right run. He's the best sprinter there when he's right. Of course, early in the season, he had some issues, but Richard Gibson's got him right now, and when he is right, it's hard to beat. Outside of that, Master 8, I thought had every chance. I just wanted to sort of highlight how we had we mentioned our prices last week as well, Richo, and this is what happened. So we had Wellington marked a $5 chance on the tote. He closed $5.40. So look, we've played earlier in the day because we were at that point in time it looked like Super Wealthy, of course, and Lucky Express would be bets. Lucky Express ran fourth. I think he ran better than his price. I still had him too short, and I've obviously had Super Wealthy too short. But you can see I didn't have much between Master 8 and Sight Success, Shane, and I think Master 8 had his chance, and I think Sight Success has probably been a bit underrated by the market, and they won't do that as much going forward because he's an on-pace runner, and there won't be the curve and he's in the race going forward either. So he's a horse that's really going well. I think Sight Success, he's stepped up this year.
Yeah, he's definitely improved. When I had a quick look at that market last week on a Friday, my first observations, as I said, was Lucky Express was too short, and Master 8 was too long, and they corrected on your market. But, there's not much between those sprinters, Clint, even though Wellington won.
Hutch, what's the performance of the week for you?
Well, I think that look, it wasn't a sort of deep week as far as the performance. It's great to see Golden 60 back. We'll go away from him. I think Sake win or Sake win. I'm not sure how they're pronouncing it. But not easy to do this, Shane. I mean, he's bounced from a wide gate. He had a probably pretty soft time mid-race, but I like a horse where you can jump him out, put him in a position, they relax, and then he quickened well. And some of his closing sections were the best of the day. So he trialled well leading, and I think he might be a Kiwi horse. And I know you got your eye on those often, Shane, but he was pretty good.
Yeah, he trialled well overseas. On his trials overseas, he could always win that race. 14, I know he drew wide, but that's the best gate for a horse like that because they can just take their time coming across. Good ride by Joe, rated him well. He was too good. Wasn't a strong race, but he's going to win again, Clint, no doubt.
And when we look at the premierships, an update there after Wednesday night, Zach Purton and Joe Moreira are tied at the moment on 98 wins apiece. And from a training performance, Frankie Law and John Sires are tied at the moment on 61. So this build-up towards the premierships, the championships, are going to be absolutely fascinating in the coming weeks as we really get our teeth into that. Moreira charging at Zach Purton. All right, the segment you all love. RSI in the hot seat.
They sweep for home now. Veandercross has come very wide. Veandercross answering the urgings of Shane Dye. Mannerism coming at him. Mannerism has got it.
Daring tactics by Shane Dye. He's got Octagonal in full flight on the corner. Bold tactics by Shane Dye are going to pay off, and he pinches the Chipping Norton.
Unique insight from a Hall of Fame jockey in Shane Dye as to the genius rides and the slaughters from the last week. We call him the Ocky for his brilliant ride in a Chipping Norton, or the Veandercross, where maybe, just maybe, he got it wrong in a Caulfield Cup. Over to you, RS Dye. Where do we start?
Last Sunday in the Class 5, Gate 11 here coming up, Kung Fu Tea. Luke Ferraris, very, very good ride. You see him here, Gate 11. The horse gets back and he cuts straight across to the fence to save ground. Now, these horses are very even in Class 5. You see him going across, and before he knows it, he gives him a bit of a dig and he gets up through midfield fence. He can get up here soon. You see him here. He gives him a dig. And it's a beautiful ride. He's actually riding pretty well, Luke, now. He started off in Hong Kong, very average, but he's getting a lot better. And he's going to make it for sure. It's just time. He's young. Now, he doesn't panic. He stays on the fence. And once again, very even bunch of horses. And in the straight, he just comes out, gets a run at the right time, and he wins. But I want to congratulate Luke for improving, Clint, and he's going pretty well at present.
Shane, when you said when he started off a little bit average, most riders, even experienced riders that we see go over, they just take a little bit of time to settle in to the jurisdiction. Some don't, of course, but what was with him? Was it just early positioning that he was getting wrong? Was it the tempo of the races?
Missing the boat in races.
Yeah.
When I say missing the boat, missing it when he should have got going, when something takes off, just different things. just sitting wide or whatever. But I've noticed recently, and it's showing too, he's riding winners at big prices, and then trainers notice and he starts to get better rides. But that was a very, very good ride.
Yeah, I liked his ride on, of course, you were a bit of a fan as well, Shane, on Campione and that front running ride. So I think when you start doing that in Hong Kong and you can, you're rating them well in front, you don't want to go too slow, you don't want to go too quick, but probably that tempo of races, I think he's starting to fine tune a little bit.
Yeah, and hopefully he stays because he is only going to get better and he'll get better rides, and he's going pretty well at present, Luke.
We continue on with Genius rides.
Yeah, this is a good race. Nothing wrong with either ride. It's actually Zach and Joe on Wednesday night. You'll see them here. Zach's on Winning Vitality, gave it every chance. Now, I've never, ever seen, since I've been watching Hong Kong, Joe be so vigorous on a horse. Natural Storm, you see him midfield. He's pushing him along, come off the fence, very good ride, and he's under the stick. Now, Joe is not a strong jockey. He's very good, but he's balanced. He hits them, he gets them to change leg. He's not like this. He really got up this horse the whole race, and it won in the race. You see him hitting him here, even before the rock. You would swear on anyone's life that Zach's going to win the race, third fence, giving it a perfect run. Joe's never going to win, doesn't stop. I think Joe's desperate to win the premiership because he's never ridden a horse like this so hard, and it won in the race. Both were very good rides. Zach rode his perfectly. Look, you'd want to be on Zach, but Joe just kept going under a very, very, very vigorous rides. Change sticks there, keep going. Both great rides, and that won the race, being very vigorous on that horse from a long way out, wasn't he, Clint?
Yeah, quite incredible that horse. He's just an absolute grinder, and he took all of Joe's sort of vigor there to get him home. And I don't know what happens to Winning Volatility backers. I mean, gee whiz, it's had an absolute perfect trip there with Zach Burton on board and presented. It really, from that position, should have been winning. So I thought he was a little bit disappointing. But no, I think it is interesting. We mentioned the championship, and we've had Zach say that he's not going to ride if he can't get his physio. Well, it looks like he's going to be able to get his physio. But some mind games Richo are already being played at the moment out there, and I think Joe's just starting to get a little bit of momentum again.
Yeah, Joe's got the momentum. We know that he can ride a bit lighter than Zach, and we look through the card on Sunday with Joe having a dominant book throughout. Zach certainly got his chances as well. So this championship will be absolutely fascinating, and we'll all be intoxicated with it, I would have thought, over the next couple of weeks in particular. Do we continue on with the positivity, or it's time to give a little slaughter?
No, actually, I didn't see a slaughter this week. Like last week, I'll tell you if there's one. Don't worry about that. I'm not afraid to. But I think the boys are all riding pretty well. There was an interesting race, and Clint brought it up last week with Zach and Joe again. And it's Happy Days and Sparking Star. Now, Zach drew outside of him. There was only 3 chances in this race, and they were always going to be in the last 3, and they were. But Zach come back and went and, well, he didn't come back. He was behind him, but he got up in the fence, whereas he could have been outside of him. He saved ground. Unfortunately for Zach, the runs didn't come, and when they did, he didn't have his momentum up. And Joe in the yellow cap on Happy Day just come to the outside and won the race. This can always happen. I'm not going to criticise Zach because I'm one to save ground and look for runs. But you can see Zach getting held up here. Joe's in the clear and come out, and it was probably the difference between winning and losing. But on percentages, if you're saving ground looking for runs, you're going to win more races than sitting wide. So I'm not criticising Zach, but it was interesting how he switched to the fence early on.
It was Shane. I was a little surprised at that, just given that the other chances were there, and I thought he probably could have had a 3-wide trail and had sort of Joe locked away, and that might have given him options. But, it's split-second decisions early in a race, and he's decided to go down there. He makes that same decision in a lot of other races, and it wins him a stack of events, that's for sure. On this occasion, I was just a little surprised he did that, given that the ones that he was following were sort of big in the market, and I couldn't really see much pace on paper. And I thought you're going to be stuck behind some ordinary ones, which is how it worked out. But it's always easy from the grandstand. But he's won plenty of races doing the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not criticising that.
Hey, Shane, just a real quick one. We know Happy Valley is akin to Moonee Valley. What's Sha Tin? What's the analogy for Sha Tin? Is it a Caulfield type track, or is it Flemington Randwick style?
No, Melbourne doesn't have good circumference tracks, and I'm not trying to knock it. Caulfield is turning uphill a straight. Sharton's probably the best track in the world circumference-wise. It's absolutely perfect, and the surface is perfect. Randwick is a little bit similar, but it's got a bit of a dummy run down from the half mile to the 600. But also there is a rise. But Sharton's just the perfect racetrack. There's nothing like it. Flemington's totally different. Flemington's turning, Caulfield's turning, Moonee Valley's turning. Sandown is a bit similar. It wasn't turning, but it goes down at the half mile and then comes up in the straight, whereas Sharton's flat.
And that's why we love betting there, right? Let's learn some more. We make our way into the classroom. Let's learn about Hong Kong racing. And Hutch, when we jump on the Hong Kong Jockey Club website, it is full of information. Steer us through it.
Yeah, it certainly is full of information, but just pertaining really to the race fields and all that sort of information, which might be the most important for people to begin with anyway, just to look up what is running on certain days and the timing of some of that. So the fields, declarations they're called in Hong Kong, acceptances in Australia. You go to www.hkjc.com. Now, 9 a.m. Hong Kong time, or probably around about midday in Melbourne or Sydney. Those are the times for a Wednesday that all the fields will come out. And for the Sunday, doesn't matter if it's Saturday or Sunday, those fields will be released around 9 to 9:30 on a Thursday. And you can click on that website. You go, obviously, to race card. Once you go to hkjc.com, and all the races will be there, and all the forms pretty much up as soon as that is entered. So you can reference all of that. You've got your race card. Involved in that as well, you can see there's some track work times. They have all of that stuff. The past incidents extract. So if this horse has been checked in the running, if he's been caught wide without cover in the steward's report, that will be noted. A form line report with those types of comments, exceptional factors. All of that is on the bar above basically the race field, including the veterinary records. If a horse has missed some time out, you can also check just to double check why he's missed some work, or he may be fine. But all that information is there, and it's great information. So it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to navigate. You go to the race card and it's all there. Now, if you want to link on it, click on that QR code. That will take you where you need to be for the English race fields. And like I said, it's pretty easy to navigate. But Monday, about 9 a.m. Hong Kong time, and Thursday, about the same time, is the time you want to be getting on board to see if a horse that you've been following is running.
Yeah, scan that barcode now, and that'll take you straight there. A question without notice. Let's be honest, all my questions are without notice, Hutch. I'm a visual learner. How do we watch replays?
Well, when you go to those race cards, you have the race field. You click on the horse, and a separate window will pop up with all of his past performances. And at each one of those, at the end of it, you will see a little icon which you can click on, and the race replay will be there. So it's all free. You can go and watch the replays of every single race. All that information is absolutely free. So it's very easy to navigate. You click on the horse, his form comes up, and then at the end, each one of those runs, at the end of it, there's a little icon with a race. So it's a little horsey. Easy for you, Richo. You just press on it, and there you go. Bang, replay.
Love it. All right, let's add some star power to this show. Well, let's add some star power to this show. Our very special guest with over 100 Group 1s on his incredible CV, including a Japan Cup. He's been dominant in Australia, and he also has a Hong Kong Derby on his CV. His name is Hugh Bowman. He joins us now. Hugh, thanks so much for your time, mate.
Richo, thanks very much for having me on the show. It's good to be a part of it.
Mate, we love all things Hong Kong racing. We've dissected all. Do you have great memories of riding in Hong Kong?
Absolutely. Some of my biggest wins have been over there, and as you alluded to, I've had over 100 Group 1 wins, but two of my most significant wins were, as you just mentioned, the Hong Kong Derby on Furore, and, of course, John Moore's champion horse a couple of years prior to that. So it's been a great hunting ground for me, and at the time that I was riding Winks. I was going to Hong Kong in between races and riding very successfully. So unfortunately, with the COVID situation, it's certainly put a stop to the travel. But hopefully, if and when they do open up in the near future, we can sort of resume that pattern. Hopefully.
That's something I was going to ask you, Hugh, and thanks for being on the show. Just, you had so much success in Hong Kong, and obviously COVID's been really hard to travel, but something that it'd be on the horizon once things open up. We know Hong Kong's in a bit of lockdown at the moment, but if the opportunities arise going forward, is it something that's still on the radar?
Yeah, definitely. It actually really works well for us here in Australia. You've got the overnight plane to Hong Kong. You can ride there on the Sunday. Their major meetings are on the Sunday, so you can ride there and be back in Sydney sort of Monday morning. So I love riding there. The atmosphere, the racing's a very high standard, and I guess the opportunity developed through my relationship with John Moore when I did a 3-month stint over there in 2014, I think it was, from memory. So I've got very, very special memories and that from Hong Kong, and I'd love to have the opportunity to build some more if the opportunity arises.
You're just looking forward. I mean, Hong Kong are actually they're actually playing on the meeting. I've got the feature meeting for the championships going to or simulcast to Hong Kong for the World Pool, etc. And I noted a couple of good rides I just wanted to touch on while we've got you on the show just quickly. But Honey Creeper in the Oaks, she was a very exciting win last start, I thought, and just might get your thoughts on her chances on the weekend.
I'm very bullish about her chances. She's a horse I really knew nothing about until I sat on her and won the Adrian Knox last Saturday. And she gave me the feel of a horse or a filly that's going to really thrive at the 2,400 metres. The ground was very testing, and she seemed to really enjoy it, being by Teofilo. And there just seems to be a real sense of timing about this filly going into the race. Although she's taking on horses that have seemingly raced at a higher level than her throughout the autumn, I think she will make a presence felt. I would have liked to have drawn a bit softer with her just to give myself options, but from a wide draw, I think the likelihood would be to just switch her off and ride her in the second half of the field, similar to how I rode her in the Adrian Knox. And, she'll be very powerful late.
Last start was a 10 out of 10 ride, perfect ride. You relaxed her, saved ground, and she was too strong. She looked to travel a bit keen early to me on the video. How was she to you, giving a feel early? And will the 2,400 metres, will she relax early or pull a bit?
Well, that's a good point you make, Shane. She was pretty keen into the bridle in the middle stages, and that's why, although I was right back, I considered popping at about the 1,000 and just creeping forward a few lengths. But because she was travelling like that, I thought, I'm going to spend all my fuel. So that's why I waited and rode her patiently. And, I think that it forces my hand to ride her in a similar manner with the draw, I think, because if I try and roll forward and get the sweet spot, I agree with you. I think there's a high chance she could over-race.
And Hugh, this year, the lineup for the Queen Elizabeth Stakes, it's already been well documented. It is outstanding and just quality upon quality. A really interesting Montefilia who beat Very Elegant last start, and just really keen to get your thoughts firstly on the race and then the chances of Montefilia.
Well, I think it's one of the most exciting races that I've ridden in or we've seen, I think, for a period of time. I know that we've got 3 headline sprinters that have been taking each other on for, 12 to 18 months. But this is a field of genuine world-class Group 1 horses, in my opinion. And although the top weight thinking over, he's not going to be as suited to the wet track as he would be on the firm. But there's 5 others I'm Thunderstruck, Zaki, Dallasan, who's racing consistently, but he's probably going to have to lift his game to win this. But Montefilia, Duas and Animo, it's just a really good contest. And I think given the conditions, it's going to just open it up a little bit. I think it'll take some of Zaki's brilliance away from him, although I do have him marked as my main danger. But I think the conditions really play into Montefilia's hands, to be perfectly honest with you.
Huey, I've just looked at the market in Australia. Do you think it's wrong? They've got Very Elegant favourite. I wouldn't have a favourite. I'd have Animo favourite on what he's done.
Well, I'm not as good in that department as you might be, Shane. I don't know. I think Very Elegant. I am surprised she's favourite, but I guess she's such a good horse, and I think if they all bring their best foot forward, she's the one to beat. But you're relying on her lifting from what seemed to be a little bit of an under par performance in the Randvet, but she is trained by Chris Wallace, so she's been set for this race. She's going to peak on the day.
What do you think of Animo? Do you think he's the horse to beat? Obviously, you said Saki before, but he's done not much wrong, Animo.
If my honest opinion, going forward, I think he's a horse of the future. There's no doubt about that. And come the spring, he'd be the horse I'd want to be on if I had the choice. But I think he could be vulnerable. I think it's the first time he's been in a serious horse race where the pressure's going to be right on from the outset. And as good as he was in the Rosehill Guineas, I don't think any of the opposition that he beat would get within 5 lengths of these horses. And it was a very slow first quarter of that race, so I don't think it was a true test of stamina for him, as impressive as he was. So although I think in 6 months' time he will be the best horse out of the race, I think he'll be vulnerable tomorrow.
And we hope Hugh as well, obviously, with the terrible amount of rain that they've had in Sydney, etc., that we have this drying period in the next 24 hours and we get a surface that obviously it's going to be heavy, but it's not too detrimental to too many of their chances.
No, I'd have to agree. But last week we had similar lead up to the Saturday races and the track raced beautifully. It was rain affected, of course, and it's going to be again tomorrow. And admittedly, we've had more rain this week than we had last week, but it's fine now. Friday afternoon, it's about when the tap was turned off last week, and we had a really fair track. So, of course, you're going to need a horse that handles the wet conditions. We all know that, but if it races as fairly as it did last week, I think that's all we can ask for.
Shane, quick question. Can you remember the first time you saw a young Hugh Bowman make his way into the jockey's room?
Well, Huey, I was more or less gone when Huey come along. I was in Hong Kong riding, and he really come along. I think it was the mid-2000s when Darren was there, and Darren gave up, and then Huey took over that mantle of Darren. Huey took a while to get to that mantle. He's a far better jockey at like 32 than he was at 22, whereas a Darren Beedman at 22 was as good as a 32. Huey improved with age, and he's very patient. And I've always admired Huey because the hardest thing and the most thing that jockeys cannot do, and they don't know how to do it, is give a good horse an easy run but get away with it early on in a prep. You cannot test the good horses early on because they can't sustain it over a long period of time. And I've always admired Huey, the way he rode Winx, and it was just perfect. He gave her a great ride early on in her preparation without knocking around but still winning. And it's a credit the way he rode her. You know, when I look at Winx, I don't look at Chris Waller. I look at Huey Bowman because he got her there all the time.
Wow, Huey, he doesn't throw away compliments very easily. So that's a beautiful compliment. Can you remember the first time you saw RS die and had anything to do with him?
I can. I mean, he was... When I came to Sydney, Shane was, as he said, he was more or less packing his bags. He might have been here for 6 to 8 months when I came to Sydney from Bathurst. But I remember before I was a jockey when and Shane mentioned Darren, when the two of them were rivaling for the Group 1 Jockey of the Year in the sort of mid-90s. I remember though, and it was I didn't grow up in a racing family, but once I started to get an interest in the racing and knew I wanted to be a jockey, I was following it closely on the weekends from my school dormitory. And they were the days that I thought, gee, I hope one day I could be like Shane Dye and Darren Beedman. And fortunately, I've had an amazing career, and it's been, they're my early memories of Billy Idol, as they call him.
Just changing the subject. I want to ask you about a horse called Power of Success. Now, it's in race 6 in Hong Kong. It's a Group 1 mile race, fillies and mares, and it was a good win coming from back last start. What do you think her chances are?
Promise of success, you mean?
Oh, Promise of Success. Sorry, yeah. Group 1.
Yeah, she's a really good mare. I think she's had the writing on the wall that she'd be up to this grade from the time she got to Australia. She was bought from England, I think she came from, and she's a very powerful individual. And I love the fact I've drawn softly. I can just put her to sleep. She does need to settle. She can get a bit hot under the collar, but from a good draw, she could sit sort of 4th, 5th, 6th, depending on how quick the pace is. And she's got a dynamic turn of foot. And she proved at Newcastle last start that she copes with the conditions and to step up in class for her, but I think she's up to it.
And what do you think of the chances in that race?
The main chances, where are we?
Lighthouse, Colette, they're in it. Both Group 1 horses.
Ice Bath, Colette with the wet track, ultra consistently this preparation. A horse that I do respect and I don't know much about is Yonce from the Kira Mar stable. She's got it.
She's been very impressive, hitting the line late.
Yeah.
Mile suits. She's done absolutely nothing wrong, but this is her test. And I don't know what she's like on a wet track, but if you had a normal track, she'd be right there.
Yeah, they say, Shane, that she's better on a wet track. They've sort of been looking forward to getting onto a wet track, so look out. I think that is the one to beat.
Yeah, she certainly comes up with some interest. So it's an open race, though, and it's a high class race.
Hugh, we love your work, mate. Good luck on Saturday. We'd love to see you back in Hong Kong as well. And thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Clint. See you guys.
Let's pick out 3 races to drill into for Sunday. And Hutch, we'll start with race number 9 with Packing Treadmill, Zach Pert and Joe Moreira's on Voyage Bubble.
Yeah, this is my early market for this race. And Bazinga, who was an impressive winner first up, I've got him marked a slight favourite over Voyage Bubble. Of course, their starting prices were quite different for their last clash, but interesting to see how the market plays out. And of course, the other horse that arrives sort of undefeated is Packing Treadmill, who's got to be a big chance in the race. Brilliant Way, I've got him marked around $13. He comes back to back in trip, which is interesting, but he's drawn a gate and he did over race last start. There was some good support for him too. But yeah, it's a really interesting race. We've got Bazinga, Packing Treadmill, Voyage Bubble, and to a lesser extent, probably Brilliant Way all coming into this race in decent form, really, if you can just forgive that run from Brilliant Way. But, of course, this was Bazinga. We'll get Shane's thoughts on it. But, Shane, I thought Bazinga couldn't have been much more impressive. He's a young horse. He had one start for a win in Australia, goes to Hong Kong. Their Voyage Bubble was a little further back than I expected on the day, and he draws gate 1 on the weekend, so it'll be a lot closer for Joe Moreira. But it looks like Zach's jumped off him. But I think they're going to have their work cut out beating Bazinga, who's drawn the outside and can go forward again, albeit with more weight.
I totally agree. You know, I think he meets them 8 pounds worse, Bazinga, but he was very impressive. He's going to be very hard to beat. You got to remember that second horse. When he won 2 starts ago, he was very impressive, I know, but it was on that wet track. And I just don't hold that form as strong as normally, because you see horses go better than they can or worse than they can. And he didn't reproduce that run from 2 starts ago. But I think when he won, he only ran 1:11.43 on the wet track. So it wasn't fast and he didn't beat much, but he was impressive. But from gate 1, he's going to get a beautiful run. I think it's a 3-horse race with the other one Packing Treadmill, of course, who's been impressive. And I hold him probably better than Voyage Bubble.
Yeah, well, Packing Treadmill is interesting. I mean, of course, he beat Science Patch and Fun and Glory, who've both come out and won, but I'm a little cautious with him as well, because he's been very impressive at his 2 starts, but he has been in races where they haven't gone that quick and they haven't rated anything exceptional, but he's doing what he needs to, and some of the form around him stacking up well. But, gee, Bazinga couldn't have done much more there, and I'm with you. You know, some of these horses that like to roll forward from those wide draws, like I'm happy with him being out there because Karras can just sort of blend in or roll across, and I think he'll improve again off that first up run. I mean, he hadn't run in a long time, so for me, he'll be the one to beat.
I think he's entitled to be favourite, but that depends on how Joe and Zach have gone during the day. It's race 9 now. If one of them's had 3 or 4 winners or something like that, they'll start favourite ahead of him, because the market in Hong Kong, as we know, is based on jockeys during the day and the all-ups that go on them. So I would have Bazinga favourite if they've all ridden the same amount of winners. But if Joe or Zach's had a good day, one of the other horses will probably come up favourite.
Race number 7, sprint over 1,000 metres. Hutch, we continue to watch with great interest. Nervous Witness.
Oh, this is going to be an absolute beauty. And some of the jockey changes here are really interesting. And we've got to be careful about this sometimes in Hong Kong, because guys like Zach and Joe are often booked well ahead of time. So whether or not Zach is committed to Stoltz, I'm not sure. But there's some jockey changes here of real interest. I mean, Zach did ride Nervous Witness last start. Now he gets back on Stoltz, who he doesn't want to leave, who comes back to 1,000 metres. Of course, Blake's had a bit of an association with Carroll Street. Maybe it's a weight thing at 118, I'm not sure. But Blake now gets on Nervous Witness, and Vincent keeps the ride on Carroll Street. So there's just a few moving parts here. No real surprise with Joe and Hong Kong win, but just those little change of jockeys. Now, this is Nervous Witness last start. Look, despite what some of the rhetoric's been with him, on my stuff anyway, all of his runs this season have nearly rated the same. The difference was that on this occasion, he sort of had Zach back on board. He pretty much got a softer lead as such. He wasn't really taken on, and he was quite dominant. But while it was visually impressive, like I said, there's been less than a length with all of his runs this season. So I'm not 100% sold on that he's been in and out of form. I think that his peak figure was clearly that second run. It was a lot better than anything else, but most of his other performances have been similar, and he's a weight carrier. So he's got to be a great chance. And Zach riding him does catch my eye, because Stoltz's peak figures are pretty similar. But look, at an early glance, I think Carroll Street's the one that might just be forgotten a little bit by the market here. I think there's good speed in the race, Shane. I think they'll really roll along. Carroll Street will be biding his time out the back. He's a great straight course horse, and he's getting a bit of weight off them. And the last time Carroll Street ran against Nervous Witness at the Valley, he ran almost a second fast his final 600. So he made up 6 lengths on him. He won't need to make up that much down the straight, and he's better off at the weights.
Yeah, he is, but he hasn't got the 133, even though he's number 1 Nervous Witness. What's he got? 128 pounds. So that'll help him. Nervous Witness runs time up the straight. He runs the 55s. But in saying that, I think last season once, so did Carroll Street. So I always look at the times of what they runs up the straight, so they can both run 55. Nervous Witness, I think, will be odds on for sure. I can't see how he's not going to be $1.80, $1.70, $1.90, something like that.
And would you back him at that price?
I think he'll win. Don't know. I've got to go back and go over it, and I've got to have a look at all Carroll Street's runs again up the straight. He loves the straight, Carroll Street. He's a different horse up the straight to round the bend. He's definitely better. Hong Kong win goes well up the straight. He's another one that isn't the worst. They're probably the main thing. Swoosh, a little bit query. He didn't run the 1,200 out last start, but he did the start before that, but he was unlucky getting held up, and maybe that's why he ran it out. But over 1,000 at Happy Valley, he's been good, Swoosh. He's not out of it. But I've definitely got Nervous Witness on top from Carroll Street.
Yeah, well, you talk about time, Shane, and that's what Stoltz has done at Happy Valley. I mean, I think he ran a track record or very close to it. So he's a horse that can run time. And does it surprise you that sort of Zach's riding Stoltz over Nervous Witness? Because it was a real eye catcher when I saw the acceptances coming out or the declarations.
There's no way Zach would have picked Stoltz over Nervous Witness, I believe. I haven't spoke to him, so I don't know, but I think he would have had a prior commitment and something's going on there because he would have ridden Nervous Witness. So I'd be very surprised if he chose the other one over Nervous Witness.
Let's go back to the start of the day. Hutch, let's have a look at race number 1. No ride here for Zach, and Moreira rides Wonderful Warrior.
Yeah, a very interesting newcomer, and we'll chat about him in a moment. But we've got, of course, Cheval Valiant in the race as well. Is probably a good benchmark for the race. I mean, he sets a reasonably good line at how good you're going to have to be. He was beaten under 2 lengths by Flying Season and was placed behind Glenealy Generals prior. So one thing that Cheval Valiant's been throughout the season has been he's been extremely consistent, course and distance, and he is going to be up there rolling along. But I have been taken with the work and trials of Wonderful Warrior. We're going to have a look at this trial. Now, he is in behind here. He jumped fairly. I love the fact that he's drawn out high. He tracks the speed. They ran reasonable time in this trial. But look at him when Joe just angles him off heels. He doesn't even really pressure him in this heat, and he sort of just glides away from them late. The rest of them are all sort of being niggled along late in the heat, but he's a horse that's worked really well. He's jumped out and also trialled very well in Hong Kong, and he did it under little duress there. So Shane, he's a very interesting newcomer in the day. We've got a couple in the race, and this is Cheval Valiant, and I think you'll see a similar sort of race set up here. I think Cheval Valiant will go forward with Lyle, but he's a bit weak that last 100. I'm hoping Joe will just stalk him and run over him late.
Cheval Valiant can't run quick times. He's always there, runs a 56.7 normally, somewhere around there. So if you've got a nice, young, promising horse, he's always going to beat him. Not a strong class 4, pretty weak. The horse you mentioned, Wonderful Warrior, had 3 trials in China, trialled well every time. You saw his trial there, very good. He's the horse to beat. He didn't trial overseas. The other one that might run a race in this is Sweet Diamond. He was slow out first up, got back, ran on, and he didn't run too bad. But it's not a strong race, and I'm with you, Clint. Wonderful Warrior is going to be very hard to beat, especially from the gate, the outside. That's perfect.
Honkers.com is the website to jump on with a full analysis of each Wednesday and also weekend meeting at Sha Tin. And Hutch, let's find a best bet for our audience today.
Oh, I think the best bet is Bazunga at this point in time. I thought that debut performance was really strong. I think he'll be hard to beat, and I like the first starter in the first race. I thought Wonderful Warrior, so it'll be a toss-up between the two, which one is actually elevated to on top, but those are the two horses that I really like on the day. Probably in terms of opposition, Wonderful Warrior might get a slight edge because I just don't think there's that too much to beat in the race. As Shane said, we've got Cheval Valiant, and that's about it. Some of those other newcomers are probably going to need the experience.
This is where I roll out the disclaimer each and every week, RSI, because we know you haven't finalised yours, but you normally just give us something that's a little over the odds, and you've been right on the money. Is there something that you've already caught your eye?
It wasn't last week. But then again, it got a bad run in the race. It got a bad run in the race. It actually ran well, the horse I mentioned last week, and it'll win soon. Race 10, let me see. Navis 2, back to 1,400. He was going from a mile back to 1,200 last start and ran very well. He's not the worst. He could be favourite, though, but you will get at least $3 him, maybe more him, I would think. He's racing very well. Gate 13, he'll sit midfield to back 3 deep with cover on the C track, and he's racing very, very well. Not an easy race, but he gets his chance to win again.
Race 10, number 10 for RSI. Something out wide there, Navis 2. Hey, team.
He could be favourite.
It's out of your little out wildfire. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about the price. Just find us a winner.
Captain Win from the gate will be short. He won't be big odds. He's got a good gate. He'll get a good run in the race with no weight. He ran well the other day. He doesn't seem to win, but he's never far away. Of course, Silver Express is coming back from a problem, trialled all right. So, the Golden Scenery was a bit disappointing last start. He normally starts around $3 most races. And he's got a good gate and he's got the kit on, so the weight's off. So there's a few there that they might back.
Love it, RSI. Hey, good luck for what's going to be a huge weekend. And Hutchieshonkers.com, all the analysis will be up on the site. And let's let it rip.